This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, let's see if we can share our screen. Okay, so this is the problem that we're working with, and we have 20 journal entries, and we're to make these journal entries, post them to the ledger, and do a trial balance. And of course, a lot of you have submitted. So let's see if this is what we're gonna work on later. So here's a submission with the 20 journal entries. Has my T accounts. Has my balance appears at 2,200,000 was a popular number. And income statement prepared, statement return earnings prepared. Let's see if our balance sheet is balanced. So the one question came up as I was reading was, let's go back to the T accounts. Closing entries, what has to be closed? You see this blue line that says temporary accounts? Everything under the blue line has to be closed out. Everything under the blue line has to be closed out. Where's sales returns and allowance at? Is it under the blue line? Are sales returns under the blue line?
Yes.
Yes.
So what are we supposed to do with sales returns?
Close it out.
Supposed to close it out.
Close it out.
Okay. So let's look at what happens when we don't close it out. So on the trial balance, we come through, we close out the sales, and then we closed out 610 in expenses, and then we closed out the net income of 330. So let's go to this T account. So income summary has 610 in it, debits. It has 330 and a million, then it has net income. But if I auto sum these right here, I got 940 on one side and a million on the other side. So is this account closed out?
No.
No.
So how are we going to close it out?
Add another closing statement.
Debiting income summary and crediting sales returns.
Okay, so let's go to trial balance. We could do that, but rather than making another closing entry, why don't we put sales returns here? So it has a debit balance, so we need a credit balance to close it, correct?
Yes.
So if we put the sales return here at 60,000, then the income summary here is going to be what? This is going to be what? 940, correct? And now, when we go to our T accounts, if we change this to 940, The account is now closed out. So we put the 330 up there until we had closing entry 3 correct, but this account wasn't closed out. And of course, what's going to happen here? That closing entry number 1, so I'm going to put Roman numeral 1 here. They didn't have a format here to close it out. So anyway, it closes out now. So that was a question. So when you see something, like you have a question, you still got to come down with, I got to close all these accounts down. You could have made a 5th closing entry, but most times we're going to do it in the context of standard 4.
Can you
Any
go
questions?
back to your closing entries?
Okay, go back to my closing entries. Okay. So we just simply put that here. Sometimes we might have other income. So you just have to put it in either 1 or 2. So anything on the income statement, anything needs to be either in closing entry 1 or closing entry 2. At the end of the day, income summary account has got to come to 0. And that net income has got to be closing entry 3. Well, that was a good question, and you hadn't seen that before. And some of you talked to Joy. Well, when Joy took the course, we didn't have this entry, so she would not have been familiar with it. But we're always updating and moving on. So I don't ever teach it just the same the next time. I'm always trying to add things to the course. Any questions? Okay, so let's go back to 5. Are there any other questions on 5 before we start on it? And I
Can you go
think,
back to your balance sheet?
go back to my balance sheet. This is the top of the balance sheet. And I need to see 1,490 at the bottom, correct? Is 1,490 at the bottom? Yes. Notice that retained earnings changes from 0 to 290, and that's why we balance.
And can you scroll up? Did you get 2,200,000 for the totals at the top?
For trial balance, yes,
Yes.
2,200,000.
Okay.
Are there any other questions before we look at journal entry by journal entry and discuss a strategy? Because when I looked at these, some students had the Excel spreadsheets, others had the Word document. So first of all, they teach Excel in high school, okay? So you can't then come to college and say, well, this is easier, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so you need to be into Excel, okay? And so we're going to try to look at it today. And I tell you, if you did certain things, it would save you work. So what I did was this. I hadn't put a thing in it yet, but rather than just going in numerical order with the journal entries, I decided to go by journal entry type. So I'm going to set this up by journal entry type, so when I work another problem, all the journal entry ones are going to be up top, and then here are my twos, threes, fives, and so you have to work with that. Let me see if I can. Insert. Oh, why don't you want to act right? Oh, no, let's see. Let me just clear content. And so I did this because someone had a very legitimate question would be, well, if they're not in the same order, how you make this work? So you just got to be able to put the journal entries uh, in this method, and if you had a strategy of probably have two type ones, because sometimes we have more than one, and a couple type twos, a type three, couple type threes, 5 and 7, and 3/8 in terms of purchasing assets, uh, some nines, paying expenses, and you would put the common things that you saw in, put in, there's 5 or 6 expenses we see all the time. You would put those in. If you did that when you came back to use the spreadsheet, you wouldn't put them in this numerical order, but you're going to put them in the order of the journal entry types. And that will be a way that you wouldn't stay in this order putting them in, but that would be a way that you could go ahead and uh, when you reuse the spreadsheet and clear out your dollar amounts, they will follow through. So let's just look at that and see. So in the first one, it's a type 1. We always know that. And so that we know that we're going to do what? Debit cash and credit common stock. I think we only have one of those this time. Now, if you have to stay in order, and if you get out of order and it bothers you, then you don't use this method. So I'm gonna go in here and click on the cash, and I'm going to hit what? Control C. Then I'm gonna go to my T account. I'm gonna go to cash. I'm gonna right click, pay special, and I'm gonna put paste link. It's there. Then I'm gonna auto sum down to here. Not gonna double. No, I can't double auto sum. Let me just see if I can stay on one side. It wants to get on both sides for some reason. Still wants to auto sum both sides. Let's see what happens when I auto sum. Yes, that's undo. I'll just wait a while before I auto sum. Okay, let's go back to the journal entries again. And in journal entry 2, what do we have? We purchased inventory on account. So that's going to be a type 12. So I'm going to go down here to my type 12s. So I'm going to put my type 12s here. 12 here. And I'm going to make the next one a 12. I'm going to make the next one a 12. So I'm going to start my type 12s here. And I'm just going to debit inventory. And I'm going to credit accounts payable. And so that was 500,000. So I'm going to put the 500,000 here. And I'm going to put the 500,000 here. So I'm just putting them in journal entry type order. So I'm going to click on this. And I'm going to hit Control C. Then I'm going to go to the T accounts. I'm going to go to inventory. Right click it, space, paste the link. So whenever I use that journal entry, it's going to come to this T account. Okay, so then I need to get the account payable in here. So whenever now I use this spreadsheet and I put a journal entry here, it's going to do what it just did. That's what's going to happen all the time. So I'm just setting it up in journal entry type, and I'll just keep them in that type order. So when I reuse this, the problem changes. I don't have to worry about being in the exact order. Paid cash for supplies, 50,000. So what type is that? That's probably going to be a type 7. So I'm going to debit supplies. And I'm going to credit cash. And that was 50,000. So I'm going to put 50,000 here. And I'm going to put 50,000 here. Come here. Hit my Control C. I'm going to go into my T accounts to supplies. Right click, space, special, paste the link. Go back to my journal entry. Go to cash. C. Then I'm going to go to the T account for cash. special, paste the link. Okay. So now I got items on both sides. So I'm gonna come in here and now do my auto sum. And it picks up the 50,000 and 550,000. Now I'm gonna put my equation in. So this is gonna be equal, shift parentheses. I'm going to click on here. Then I'm gonna put my minus sign in. I'm gonna click here. I'm gonna close my parentheses. Now my balance in cash is 450. So now I'm gonna click on the 450 and hit Control C. And then I'm gonna go to the trial balance. And the black Control C is already there. So the 450 is there. But I would have come in here and did the same thing with this. It's already in here already. Are there any questions by anybody on that? So what I'm saying, if you can get, you have to work with what will work with you, and some of it may be Word and whatever, but if you get this system down, get your system down, then when you make the journal entries, you should be pretty close to being all the way to the trial balance. So we're just trying to get to the trial balance and not go to the busy work. Let's go to our journal entry 4 here, which is what paid dividends in the amount of what? 20,000. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come over here to my journal entries. And I know that's a type 10, so I'm going to come in here. I'm going to put dividends here. I'm going to put cash here. And our amount was 20,000. Because I'm assuming you have this, so I'm going to put 20,000 here. Then I'm putting the cash at 20,000. Now I'm going to come in here and do a Control C. And I'm going to go to my T account for dividends. So anytime that I put something there, it's going to do that. Then I'm going to go back to my journal entries, click on the credit to cash, and put a Control C in. And I'm going to go to the T account for cash. Now look how it's changed this balance to 430,000 in the cash account. And when I go to trial balance, it's at 430 also. So it's doing and keeping a running balance once you get this set up. So you have to work with what system works best for you. I'm just trying to put in a shortcut method that if you get this set up, whatever system you want, it can work. Our next one was we purchased land for 500, paying 50,000 down and sign a note for the balance. Since that's special and different, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to put land here. and that land was 500,000. I got land at 500,000. We're gonna credit cash. We're gonna credit notes payable. So I will set up one of these for land. I set up another one for my toy equipment. So they're already set. So when I find out what it is, so the cash was 50,000.
Dr. Boyd,
Yes.
I have a quick question. I don't mean to interrupt. What you're doing, it makes sense. Like it's making sense with the pace link and everything. But do we have to do this for the midterm? Because I have a system like, and I feel like I got it down packed to where I'm getting the whole thing all the way up to the balance sheet correct. And I'm scared that this might throw me off on the
No.
midterm. And I'm okay.
As I said, starting out, everybody can use whatever system they want. Some people are not even using Excel. So I'm kind of trying to get them into Excel.
Okay.
Eventually, you use what works. All of you, everybody submit it. If that works for you, use what you did.
Okay.
On the other hand, we're always trying to learn more, work smarter with things. When you go to work, those of you who are in accounting and finance, when you go to work, you're going to be, most times, you're going to be working remotely.
Yeah, no, this makes sense because I do use Excel, so like streamlining the work does make it easier. I just got a system down packed, so I just wanted to make sure it wasn't
Yeah,
required. Just
eventually you just got to have the right. Now, when you go to work and you're working, you know, at your home, wherever you're staying, and you're working on a team and you have an Excel problem, you can't run over and say, how to do this, what I do this. You got to call, you got to contact your supervisor and ask them to tell you how to do something. So for the accounting and finance majors, you want to be working Excel as much as possible because you just can't go and, they got their work to get done. And so they expect you to know how to use Excel. And in fact, as we get to the end of the course, we'll look at training classes in Excel, which are fairly cheap, which you can go online and take. But you got to, accounting and finance majors, you got to be proficient. I'm going to have a student who did an internship talk to us after the break. And she worked with, I think, Deloitte and Touche, one of the accounting firms. And she's going to talk about that internship. So they train you virtually, just like we're doing now, and then you work virtually. Possibly, you know, the virus is over and there go back, but companies, that are paying people lots of money and they got special skills, they're not going to take the risk, okay, that somebody's going to go and get people sick. They can't survive that way. So you just got to be able to work both ways. But get your system. This is a system that I'm just showing here, but work with the system that works for you on one hand, but on the other hand, be flexible to use the system. Some people, some A students are not using Excel. Okay. So I'm just really trying to give them a motivation in terms of how Excel might work. You know, and just play with it. You're here to learn, and you want to know more after you leave the class than when you got here. Okay, so you always, that always has to be your dynamic. So Control C, then we're gonna go over here to these T accounts. I'm gonna write down, change this auto to land right now. But you would have to, be setting this up too, setting all of this up in terms of what will work with you. Let's see. Base special. I got to go in here and see if I can clear the contents. Then let me go back over here to the journal entry because I'm sure it's gone now. I'm gonna go back to land again and hit Control C. Land. So let me go back to these T accounts again. See if I can come here, paste space special. Has it in here, paste the link. Then I'm gonna go back to my journal entries and go where the cash is. I'm gonna hit Control C. And then when I go to the T accounts, I'm getting paste the link, 380. And now when I go to the trial balance, 380 is over there. So do you get a sense of what's happening here? So let's do the note payable. Control C. Then I gotta go in here to the T accounts. Okay, eventually you would put all of these accounts and have their balances. I just have cash going directly in now. But when you finish the problem, then you set it up so every account goes to a location on the trial balance and you just extend your trial balance and you put, so you would extend this so all of those accounts would be there and you put your totals in. And what I'm trying to get you to see, whatever system you have, if you get your system down, if you get that system down, then it can save you some work when you get to the exam. I mean, if you just got the cash account down, where a lot of time that's problem, but it depends on the area, the situation that you're facing. Are there any questions? So, who's that? Who had their system? Who said they had their system? Is it still here?
Yeah, that was me.
Okay, what does your system involve?
Oh, I mean, it's really just I feel like I just got real comfortable with the work and of course like numbering the T accounts when I post the journal entries. And what you're doing, I want to get to that too, but I was just curious about the test because I don't know if I was ready to do all that for the test.
Okay,
But my system is just pretty, I mean, I think it's pretty standard. It was just,
for the test, you would have all of this set up before you took the test. So yeah, you couldn't go to the test and do this. So what I'm saying is set up something like this before you take the test. So I have Callahan do that since Callahan likes a challenge. Right, Callahan?
I do, but I still have a question about your closing returns because it still doesn't make sense to me.
About my
And
what?
I can tell you why and hopefully you'll follow me, but it
Yeah,
still don't make sense.
the closing entries.
Yeah.
But we'll go back to
So
it.
the closing, okay.
But we'll go back to it. So I just wanted to show this to you. Now I'll put the solution in the Blackboard uh, for the problem. We'll go through the rest of the journal entries in terms of how they're made, and then you just have to make sure you do that. But let's do this closing entry again first. If I can find this Excel sheet. Okay. So here we have the closing entries. So what are you saying about the closing entries?
So when you did the closing entry for the sales return, you put it under the first closing entry.
Correct.
But when you do sales, you're debiting your sales and you're crediting your income summary.
Hmm.
Whereas when you have sales return, you are
What's the
you have
normal
to
balance for sales return?
say it again.
What is the normal balance for sales return? Look at your chart. What balance does it have?
It's a debit.
How you gonna close it?
You have to credit.
Okay, go
So
ahead.
how do you put that? So how are you supposed to put that under your first closing entry? Because technically you're debiting your sales, but you're supposed to be crediting. You get what I'm saying? And then if you change the income summary credit for the sales, it throws off your balances. It doesn't close out correctly.
Okay. All right. Let's go to the expenses. You have any problem with the expenses where you debit income summary? You got full expenses in there.
Yeah,
I mean, are there any issues?
no.
Okay. All of these accounts have debit balances, so you close them out with credits. Here you got a compound
Okay.
closing entry. Sales has a
Okay.
credit balance. Sales returns and allowance has a debit balance. So if I'm going to
Okay.
close them together, I have to debit
Okay.
sales and credit sales return, and the amount in the income summary is now 940. Let's go to the T
Okay.
account. Let's go to the T
Okay.
account. When we go to the T account, when we had $1 million here,
Okay.
what do we have? We had $1 million here.
We had $1 million under sales, which would
Right.
be, yeah, where you put that 940.
Okay. But would it close if this was $1 million? Would the account close out?
It would, but not not with that sales returns being under that first closing entry. It would do it if you put it under, I guess, that second closing entry, but I want to make sure that that's correct.
Okay, most times you're going to close sales and sales returns together. It does not matter. You could put it
Okay.
on the second one, or you just have to reduce the first one.
Okay.
Let's look at
But then when you go to the T account for sales, that amount over there is $1 million for sales.
right, where sales
So
at.
when you do try to close it out, you're going to have a balance.
Uh, and so you close out the million. But look here, sales returns were never closed out.
Correct.
Okay, so before I take this out, clear content. You had an account number one. This account is sitting here with a 6,000 debit balance. It's not closed out.
Right.
So something's wrong.
Right.
So the way we chose to fix it was, yeah, this is $1 million, but then in the closing entry, we also are going to credit sales returns for 60,000. This journal entry still balances. If we go to the journal entries have to balance. The debits have to equal the credits. $1 million in sales, a credit and income summary, and a credit to sales return, that's still $1 million. The closing entry does not have to be, all the accounts up here have to be debited and all the accounts down here have to be credited. You can mix it, and most times with sales returns and allowances, you're going to keep them here. Okay? You're going to keep them with the sales. But it does not matter. You could have this as $1 million, but then, okay, let's go with your thing. Okay, you want to keep this as $1 million. Let's keep it as $1 million.
I'm just trying to understand how the T accounts close out correctly.
Well, it did not close out before. It wasn't closed. You did not have every account below the line closed out.
Right. But I guess,
You have what? Look at your T account. Was it
so
closed out?
so before I closed out that sales return, the sales return, before I closed that out, I had 940 on the debit side and $1 million on the credit side under income summary, just because I hadn't closed out the sales returns, right? But then
Right.
when you go back and you credit the sales return and you debit income summary and put that, do the 60,000, then you get to $1 million under and it closes out. But it doesn't make sense when you put it under the same closing entry as sales.
It's a
So
sales return.
that's the part that I'm trying to understand. Why do we go from having $1 million?
First of all, what is a sales return?
It's a debit.
I mean, but what actually is a sales return?
A
A
It's
refund.
refund.
taking it's taking
So,
away from your
so the
sales.
company didn't have $1 million in sales. How much did it have in sales?
It had 940.
That's right. So when we get to
But
that, okay. All right. The other thing, okay, let's leave this. Then what has to happen down here? If you leave this like this, what has to happen? We can put it down here. What you're gonna have to do down here now?
where are you at?
I'm on the income summary.
Okay,
I'm on closing entry 2. What you gonna do?
I see you. So you would put 60,000 for the sales returns.
So you put it here. What's this number gonna be?
The income summary
Mm-hmm.
down at the bottom
Yeah, right here. This number here. Is it
would
still gonna be
be
610?
no.
What's it gonna be?
It would be 680.
Well,
No, 670.
okay. So the bottom line, to get this closed out, you can close it
Hmm.
up here or you can close it down here.
Okay, so you'll accept either or, because the way that we were originally doing it, it doesn't make sense because you wouldn't be able to close out all your T accounts correctly. It just doesn't.
You would be able to, you're gonna have to think on this and sleep on it. You
I
would be able
am.
to close. You
I
would be
am.
able to close them out.
Okay.
It's a debit. You can
I'm
close
gonna
it
put it
out up
under the
here as a debit, and this would be 940, or you can close it out down here, but then you got to change the expenses to 670.
okay.
So it can go either way.
Okay.
But the bottom line, however it works for you, is fine. But two things, like I say, the bottom line is you didn't have sales of $1 million. So technically, it's better up here to reflect the fact that the sales are 940. But when you
But
do
in your
your
T
close,
accounts under sales, it doesn't say 940. It says 1 million.
but it has sales returns right here of 60.
Okay.
Okay. the sales return and sales accounts go together. Uh, they aren't on here, but this account really needs to be over here. Maybe that'll help you a little bit.
Mm-mm.
It relates to sales. The sales weren't $1 million; they were 940. You got to close it out by 60 debit it. You can close it out with journal entry 1, or you can close it out with journal entry 2.
Okay.
Okay, so just think about it, but don't overly be into, when we get into closing entries, go back to trial balance. We're closing out the revenues in closing entry 1, the expenses in closing entry 2. Sales returns is not an expense. It's a reduction in sales. But however you want to do it. But the bottom line is, I don't care how you do it, that sales return has to be closed out. Does everybody understand that? So if you don't close out sales return on Thursday, what's going to happen? How many points should you lose if you don't close out sales returns? One way or the other.
Professor, can you post it? Are you gonna post this recording tonight so we can rewatch it?
Of course.
Okay.
Now, let's go through and make sure we can get all the journal entries done, okay? So I'm not going to do any more of the posting that we were doing. I'm just going to go back to the standard way, because I'm assuming that if you got journal entries, you can do it manually or however you want to do it, but you can post them. So we were down the land where we bought the land for 500, paying 50,000 down and signed the note for the balance. Then the next journal entry, we paid income tax expense. Debit income tax expense for 150, credit cash for 150. And I'm gonna post this problem, the solution also, okay? So you'll have the recording and this problem. Then we paid the salary expense. Debit salary 250, credit cash 250. Then we paid the rent expense. Debit rent expense for 200, credit cash for 200. We earned 100,000, type 15. We debit account receivable 100, credit sales 100. Paid on accounts payable 200,000. We debit accounts payable 200, credit cash 200. Car rental revenue received. It's a type 1, debit cash 500, credit sales 500. Collection of cash from corporate customers 50,000. We debit cash 50,000, credit receivables 50. That's a type 3. Paid 100,000 principal, 10,000 interest on the note payable. Okay, so we debit note payable, debit interest expense, and credit cash. Cash refunds to customers. So what's this entry when we had these cash refunds? What happens if you do a refund on your credit card? Suppose you buy something with your credit card and you get ready for a refund. Are they gonna
You
give you Are they gonna give you cash?
no,
Who said no?
I did.
Who was I did?
Aisha Green.
Oh, okay, I just checking. All right, Aisha. So as an A student, you keep that in mind on Thursday, okay?
Okay.
Giving y'all a hint. Then the next one, we had car rental revenue earned from corporate customers, 400,000. We got our type 15 again, debit account receivable, credit sale. Collection of cash from corporate customers, 300,000. Debit cash, credit account receivable. Paid on accounts payable, 100,000. Debit account payable, credit cash. Short-term bank loan received, 150. Debit cash, credit short-term note payable. Paid dividends, 20,000. Already done that one. And then, so that was the second dividend. Then refund of car revenue to cash customers, 10,000. Debit sales return 10, credit cash 10. Are there any questions on these journal entries? Does anybody have any questions on the journal entries? Now, Miss Green and Miss Miller, I do not want you all to be too comfortable, Muhammad,
Yes.
on Thursday. So I'm gonna give you all some. I already gave you one thing to look at, correct? So let's go to these closing entries. Let's go to trial balance. Let's go to the trial balance. And let's just suppose the salaries were 500,000. So I'm changing the salaries to 500,000. Work this problem now. If the salaries are 500,000. Let me clear these contents. So now the salaries are 500,000. I want you to make the closing entries. The first three, the dividends won't change. So let me clear these contents. And you might do me another statement of retained earnings. So you got 10 minutes. I want you to redo the income statement, redo the closing entries, and redo the statement of retained earnings. If the salaries are 500,000. Does everybody understand what you asked to do?
Can you repeat
Repeat
it, please?
please.
I have changed the salaries to 500,000. So if that's the case, I want you to redo the income statement. I want you to redo the statement of retained earnings, and I want you to redo the first three closing entries. Got it? As you get ready for the midterm. Why is it we only have 23 people? That's the class size now? Okay. How are we coming? You got it, Miss Thomas?
Did you say to also do the balance sheet?
No, don't worry about that.
No. Oh, okay.
So what are our total expenses now? How much are the total expenses?
860,000.
Okay. What's our net income?
I got 80,000.
Okay. So, any questions on that?
No, I used the paste link on that though
Or you use the pace link on that?
for that one thing.
So we should not have any. You okay with this? Mr. Green, are we okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
All right. So in the next one, let's change these salaries to $700,000. I didn't change it as much as I needed to. So salaries are now 700,000, and 8 students at the beginning of the problem. You have some beginning balances in your T accounts. Cash on your beginning uh, account was 400,000. So you had a beginning balance of 400,000 in cash. Common stock was 100,000, and retained earnings was 300,000. So these were your beginning balances. Okay. So if these were your beginning balances, cash, common stock, and retained earnings, I want you to prepare the income statement, prepare the closing entries, and I want you to post those closing entries. So how are we coming? How are we coming, Muhammad?
I think I'm done with it, but I'm not sure if I did it right.
Not sure if you did it right. What are my total expenses now? So the total expenses now, what, $1,060,000, correct? Is that right? So what's our net income? What's our net income?
I got negative 120.
So we had a loss of minus 120,000. So now if we go to our statement of retained earnings, I told you the beginning balance is what? 300,000. So you would have posted this 300,000 to the T accounts before you made journal entries. You would have posted it. And so now, because this is a loss, this is going to be what? A minus 120, right? So now we've got 180. The dividends are still what? 40,000. And so the ending retained earnings is what? What's my ending retained earnings?
140.
All right, make those closing entries and come up with 140,000. So I want you to make your closing entries and then post them to the T accounts. So we'll take out what's in here. I'm not worried about the other accounts. I just wanted you to work with retained earnings account, income summary, and dividends. And after you get those entries posted, I want to see 140,000 in this ending retained earnings. I want this to be the balance after you do those postings. You can get that done, you'll be ready for the midterm to make your A on the midterm.
Professor Boyd, where did the 300,000 in the beginning come from?
This is the company had been in existence for a while. So on your midterm, I'm going to tell you that you have so much cash, common stock, retained earnings, those are probably the only accounts you have. So you have to put these balances in the T accounts. So at this point, when you came to this T account for retained earnings, let's see, it would have had a beginning balance of 300,000. So I just put the 300 right here for now.
And when you put that in the beginning for 300,000, what will you be debiting?
You would have done all of that in prior years. You don't have to well, you would, you got prior balances. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so with these trial balances, cash is gonna have 400,000, common stock 100, retained earnings 300. These are trial balances. You just put those in the T accounts. The journal entries were made in prior years.
Okay.
Closing entries and everything is made. So before you make the current year journal entries, you're gonna put these in. So I put in the retained earnings. That's the key one I want you to work with today. Now I want you to make some closing entries so that the ending retained earnings is 140,000, which is what it
All right.
says here. When you post those closing entries, I want to see a 140,000. On Thursday, I'll try to be on between 2 and 2:15, so we start a little early. Give you a few minutes extra time, especially if we got a class afterwards. So I'll be on between 2 and 2:15.
My class is not over until 2:15.
Then you're gonna have to run. You gotta have a skateboard or something.
So just to be correct, Professor, we have to use Excel on Thursday. No Word.
Well,
Just because personally, I would prefer to start using Excel after the break.
well,
Just
after the break,
yeah,
you
just to
you're
kind of
gonna use
gain
it.
the Word.
All right, we'll give y'all a reprieve till the break, but no more word after the break.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anything to please. Did y'all get my closing entries done? Posted and got that balance? All right, so class is over. Y'all got your homework. And I'll probably be on maybe at 5 o'clock for office hours tomorrow if anybody has any questions. So I'll come on at 5 o'clock in case you can't get
They
this
doing
figured
it.
out.
What's their homework?
What's the homework?
I ain't saying homework. I guess I'm saying, well, this what you're doing now is the homework. You don't turn it in, but you're gonna see this on your mid.
You mean like study? That's we need to be studying.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, if you didn't figure this out, I'll be on at 5 o'clock, or in case you had any questions. So no homework, but you need to have this figured out and you got to be showing me.
Turn that phone off now.
Say what?
Professor Boyd, I
Yeah.
guess I was going to wait till more people logged off. I sent you an email about Thursday. I didn't know if you got it.
Yeah, Prop Ed. Don't worry about it.
What's their
Yes, sir.
midterm?
Um,
What we doing today?
That's it? Journal entry, the normal.
Journal entry, posted ledger, trial balance, income statement, balance sheet, statement of retained earnings, and closing entries. Beginning balances for the A student.
Okay.
Professor,
Yes.
so sales returns go in closing entry one and not two?
Put them wherever you want them.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Don't put them both places though.
Professor, you said you're gonna post the video and the problem so we can review, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Y'all have a good one. I'll call on Thursday. If there are any questions, just touch base with me at 5 or email me, whatever.